Welcome to Psychic Visions Podcast. This is your host, Jason Zook.
And this is Megan Kane. We're in the midst of a spiritual revolution. Our mission is to share and explore mysteries of the paranormal universe with our guests and you, our listeners, as we discuss healing, spirituality, life after death, and more.
Psychic Visions Podcast, more than meets the eye.
Hey guys, welcome back to Psychic Visions. We're your hosts, Megan.
And Jason.
And today, guys, we're going to be talking about animals, pets, and our communication with them in this world and in the next. Most of you have probably heard the term or the phrase rainbow bridge, whether it's been on your social media when you see a friend who's lost a pet or an animal they're close to, or maybe you've heard about it in other ways and read about it. Jason, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about what you know about the rainbow bridge?
Absolutely, Megan. I love the term. I just think in itself it's comforting, but it's a concept of when you actually have a pet owner loses their animal, and there's the healing process involved in that for a mourning pet owner, someone who's grieving. And so upon their passing, a pet will find itself in a beautiful Eden-like meadow filled with sunshine, they say. That's pain-free, health and body fully restored. They can run around and be themselves and be playful. And basically, this place is called Rainbow Bridge. And it's a very comforting, warm place for people to think that their deceased furry loved ones, or I have two birds, for example, maybe my former parrot, Polly, or my dog, Cotton, from when I was a little kid.
Cross the Rainbow Bridge.
They cross the Rainbow Bridge, and that's where they are. But they're still there.
I love the idea. And I know that when we were reading up on it earlier, that there was some history of the Rainbow Bridge even being mentioned in Norse mythology, where it's a burning rainbow bridge that connects this world to the next, or Earth to the God realm, or to heaven. So guys, that's the concept of the Rainbow Bridge. And today we wanted to share some of our personal experiences with the Rainbow Bridge and with animals that we've communicated with from the other side. And I'd like to share my personal experience. And it's when I lost my cat, Cincy. So I had my cat, Cincy, since I was 21 years old. And he was such a big part of my growing up, of being on my own and all those experiences you have when you leave that comfort of home. Cincy was my home because I moved around so much. He was the one constant thing and energy in my life when I was moving to different states and away from my parents and in places where I lived alone, for example. I had this cat in my life for 10 years and I wish it was longer, but he got sick and I was in denial when he was getting sick. And then by the time he was ready to cross over, I had some feelings about it. I took him to the vet and they said he is really sick. He has maybe 2 or 3 days and we think you should put him down. So anyway, I got him home and he ended up passing. And you guys, it was one of the hardest passings I've ever had to deal with. And I've lost really important people in my life. I had lost aunts and grandmothers and friends, but there was something really triggering when my cat died. At this point, I had done mediumship work, spiritual work. I definitely knew that where people went. I definitely knew there was life after death, but I really hadn't had any experiences with animals yet. So when my cat died, I basically went into a deep depression. I couldn't get off my couch. I was ordering Uber 3 times a day, gaining a ton of weight, not wanting to even go outside. I was so depressed. And Jason and I were actually friends at this point. We were the beginning of our relationship, and it was the beginning of our friendship.
Was that within the first year or two of our friendship, probably at the time?
It was definitely within the first year, because since he died in June and we had just met the last fall. So this is maybe 7, 8 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, about a year, maybe about a year. Yeah. So it was about a year into our friendship. Jason had never been to my house at that point. I guess at that point in our relationship, we either went to his house or we would hang out at my shop, because I had a big conversational area in my shop where it was always clean and open. And I would just have my friends meet me there rather than my house, because it was only a few blocks away. So anyway, Jason had never met Cincy. He had never met Cincy. And after he died, I hadn't left my house. So Jason came over for the first time to my house, and there was a lot of trauma going on with Cincy's passing. When they tried to, I had someone come out, like a vet comes out to your house to put your animal down and a situation like that. And my cat had a really hard time taking the needle or the drug. It was very traumatic for me. And I felt like my cat maybe I was afraid the drug didn't work. I was afraid I didn't know if he was really gone or not. There was just a lot of trauma surrounding, did he really pass? And is he just put to sleep? Is he going to I didn't know what was happening. I was really traumatized by the whole experience. So Jason comes over, and there were some other things I had thought about too when he died. Like, does he know how much I love him? Does he know how much I'm crying? I also thought about when he was alive. Did he know all the things I did for him? Did he know specific thoughts I had for Cincy, specific questions I had for Cincy? I was completely amazed because Jason was able to answer them. So here's the story. Jason comes over, and I'm crying, and I'm on my couch, and he sits across from me, and he says, I'm here to comfort you. I'm here to hang out. And then all of a sudden he says, your cat is this, the orange one. His name is Cincy. And I was like, yeah, that's him. He needs you to know that he left his body before his heart stopped. And for me, I don't want to get too detailed, but I needed to know that. I needed to know that because he was getting cremated. I needed to know that he was actually gone. I was so freaked out by the whole idea of him getting cremated. And I needed to know that he was actually gone. And that's the first thing you said to me, Jason. And it was like this instant relief is he needs you to know that he left his body before his heart stopped, and he was out of his body and saw you crying. And that right there was the instant relief for me to know that he was okay and that he knew I was crying, and he knew that I needed to know that he left his body before his heart stopped. It was so specific, and it was what I needed to hear in that moment to feel better. And it's exactly what I wanted to know. Jason, you were basically able to give me a reading through my cat's eyes. And it was insane. You were able to read me. Like, you were saying things like your cat's saying that in your last relationship, your ex yelled at you a lot. And I was in a relationship where I had someone screaming at me and yelling at me all the time before I can escape it. And it wasn't ideal. It wasn't a good situation to be in. And every time that guy yelled at me and I would go cry in my room or be by myself, my cat would sneak in there and come and comfort me. And I would always wonder, does he know? Does he actually know what's happening right now? Is he like aware?
Animals are so aware.
And I had no idea before this. These are questions that I'm sure our audience is wondering. Can they understand what I'm going through? Do they know the emotions I'm feeling? Do they know what I'm dealing with in my life? And it was so wild for you to be able to say that to me.
I believe it because we've experienced it in the each other and separate from each other too.
Yeah, and doing readings for other people.
Yeah.
And then you continued to say, so you confirmed that for me. And then there was something else that I always thought about. So it was just me and Cincy for so long. But when I met my husband, he moved in with me. And when he moved in, Cincy was always like my sleeping partner. He was always right next to me, he was always next to me in bed. And so when Brian and I would go to bed, when Cincy came up on the bed, I always made sure to roll apart from Brian and let Cincy come between us because I wanted Cincy to know, like, you're still my number one baby. Like, you haven't been replaced and we both love you so much. And I specifically did that every night, and he would come lay right between us, and it was so cute. And Jason, you specifically said that. It was so insane, guys. He literally goes to me. He's saying that when you met Brian, he would come to sleep with you guys and you would roll away so he could sleep between you. It was like so specifically on point and so specific that instantly I was feeling so much better because prior to Jason coming over, this loss made me question everything. It literally made me question God, like, where we go when we die. Like, I didn't know where animals went. So I was just so heartbroken and confused. And it really made me question everything. And then this reading with Jason, which took probably too long because I was in hiding for a few weeks, literally pulled me out of my depression. I was instantly relieved. And it was such a blessing. And I was heavily depressed, guys, not just the emotions, the physical feelings of it. I was in a deep depression because of my cat dying. And then after this conversation with Jason, my whole world shifted. And it was such an eye-opening experience for me that then I was then able to open up to that realm. And also what's really funny about this, Jason, is I don't know if you remember this, but I'm pretty sure that was your first time like really connecting to a cat. It's like, I remember
Yeah.
you being freaked out and being like, oh my God, oh, this is so weird. I'm talking to a cat.
It was
You-
funny because for me, I'll say this, and this is one point to add. I think you'll find meaning in this. You're bringing your example of it, and Cincy would be coming here talking as well, saying if he could, he'd be telling you about his perspective, how much comfort it brought him to be able to come through to you because he saw you struggling. And that's I want our audience to think about.
Aw.
When our animals go to the other side, they can still watch us. We're like the reality show for them. So they can tune into you and see you balled up in a corner of a house on a bed or something with blankets around you, watching you sob. Or they can watch you walk around the house looking empty without them. They sense it. So that they coming through the way he did was also a very positive for him as well. People need to realize it's a two-end communication. So when they come through and they validate their owner, which is you or their pet mommy, daddy, it's also very validating for them because now they see you more at ease and they know they can be at ease.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's a really good point, Jason, because I never really thought about it from that point of view until you just said it. And it was really comforting even to hear that, to know that he was even more comforted after that, knowing that he was also able to have that communication. It changed my life and I was able to heal after that. I was able to grieve, and I guess in a healthier way after that, rather than really spiraling the way I was. And from there, it helped me tap into that. I started picking up through my readings, animals coming through for other people. And short time after that reading with Jason, I was at an event with my business and another psychic came up to me and gave me another confirmation because I just really needed to know. And I even though I already knew, it was so comforting. I had another psychic come up to me and say the same thing. You have an orange cat and he's playing with a black and white cat with green eyes, which was crazy because that was my cat from when I was a child.
You ever watch the Garfield cartoons?
Yes.
For some reason, I'm getting that as you're talking about.
Yes. That was 100% my cat. My cat was 24 pounds, a mix between
I
a
see
tabby.
Garfield analogies here.
Yeah. He
Like
was a
they're
mix
trying to
between
tell you.
and he was like a dog. Like he would run up to you when people came over, he would run up to them and greet them. And he was huge. Some people called him a lion, but yeah, he was an incredible cat. And so that's why it was such a hard loss for me. And even more recently, so since he's been gone for 6 years or so, even more recently, I had an experience where I was sitting in my living room. It was late at night. And then all of a sudden I heard a huge noise and felt this energy rush past me. And I knew it was spiritual energy. And it went directly behind me so fast into the room behind me. I heard it hit the curtains. Like I knew psychically, I turn around, the curtains are literally physically moving. So at first I was like, this has to be an animal because like it would just happen so fast. Even though it felt spiritual, this energy went so fast. I was thinking there's a
Like
pocket.
scurried, like it, yeah, it's
Right,
scurried.
it scurried, right, exactly, back behind me, and then my cats chased it, which was crazy, so I'm trying to process this all, and I'm thinking, "Did some kind of animal get in from the conservation that's hiding in my curtains now?" But my cats are scaredy cats. They wouldn't chase something unless they knew it, so it was really bizarre. So then I chased them over to the curtains, we're all investigating the curtains, me and my 2 cats run over to the curtains to see what's there, and there's literally nothing, y'all. There's nothing there. And I get this chill through my body and I just get this feeling Cincy. And I'm like, no way was that just Cincy running through my house like he's a 2-year-old. I was really weirded out. So of course I called you, Jason, and I just said, there was an energy in my home just now. What do you pick up? And you said, your cat Cincy. And of all the energies, guys, and trust me, we get visited by lots of energies. Jason knew exactly what energy it was. And that was a great confirmation for me as well.
We know each other all the time, though. Like we call each other, like it's call your psychic bestie. What do you pick up from this reading, or you'd ask
Yeah.
you what you pick up from readings you've had or done, or we have that connection, and it's so unique and so appreciated.
Yeah, it's so nice to be able to confirm things like that. And with anybody out there and their friends or the readers that they see, it's always nice to get those confirmations. And It's so incredibly healing. And
Sure.
I know
I love it.
Jason, you're amazing though. We all have had loss of animal, or at least most of us have lost an animal or something. But what about those of us who have a pet that's missing? And
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know if y'all listened to our last podcast on mediumship, but in our last episode, we touched on mediumship and Ouija boards and how I was able to find my lost dog through the Ouija board and through basically a reading I got through the Ouija board. And Jason, you have a really cool story. This is one of my favorite. Jason, you have to tell the story about the one missing animal you found. I don't want to give too much away, but y'all, this is one of my favorite Jason
Wasn't it?
reading stories because it was like crazy.
Weren't you with me though? I think you were with me at the time, weren't you?
It was a long distance. Remember, it was a long distance. But
I
I
mean,
was
I
with you when you got the call.
yeah. So let's start there because I'll give a little backup real quick. I'll
Okay.
back up backstory. So one of my close friends, Heather, and her future wife is a physician named Megan, and we're at the wedding, and I'm the officiator. And this was about a year earlier, and so I got a chance to meet Mia, who's one of the other attendees.
Hmm.
And Mia and I hit off, kept in touch through social media or whatever. And then I knew when I met her, she said she's a dog lover. And she had 4 large dogs. I was like, that's so cool. And fast forward, you and I were hanging out here at my place, and we were just, I think, catching up with each other, planning things. I think we were working on certain cold, cold files kind of thing and cold cases. And we got a call. I got a call from Mia, and she asked me right then and there if I could help her. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's, I am in the middle of the New York upper state right now, and we have a vacation home up here, and one of my dogs ran away as we were going down a mountain, down the hill together. And my dog ran off. Charlie ran off. And I was like, oh, and then she burst out crying. Her husband was with her. And they're in the car in maybe March.
Oh,
I
that's
think
such a scary feeling though, when you don't know where your pet is.
yeah, it was already like 7 or 8 at night, if I recall correctly, where it was already like they could go searching. And I just remember I looked at you and I said, I'll call you right back. And I told her I'd call her back. And so you and I sat there and I meditated with you. And then I called. And
Mhm.
when I got on the phone with her, I started connecting without even realizing it. And I said to her, hey, Mia, does your dog have a tan leash? Because I see a tan leash. You're going to find them within 24 hours. There's going to be somebody who goes up to where you live. They live up there part-time. They come up on the weekends. They work as like a park ranger. They have a house with 4 triangular windows or 3 triangular windows. And you're going to find Charlie in the shed. The door's going to be open ajar. He'll see slightly hungry, but he'll be okay. And she wrote all that down from that call. And then she posted in her Facebook group for her community. And
That's
then one
right.
of the people who came up literally saw the Facebook post and then went in their backyard and then found Charlie.
Because of the triangle windows. That was the specific thing
All of that. Yeah.
all
It
of the
was
specific, but someone had
crazy.
reached out. I remember someone had read about the triangle windows and then reached out to that person. And you never know what's going to hit, guys, when you're getting this with our mediumship. You get a lot of information, but sometimes it's that one line or that one word that is that trigger that's, oh my gosh, and it helps solve whatever you're trying to work out, whether it's a missing person, a missing pet, or an
I
answer to a
remember,
question you have.
do you remember how you and I acted when I realized that was real? And the next day, I think it was like 3:30 in the afternoon, my phone blew up and I was in a deposition for my old job at the time for a legal case. And
Mhm.
I remember, oh my God, something must have happened because Mia just blew my phone up 3 times. And then I went and called her back and she was like short of breath. She's like, we found Charlie. We found Charlie. And he was exactly what you said he'd be. And she just went like really excited about it. And it was, and then I wound up interviewing her about it. I'll put I could drop the link to that episode in the show notes too, because it's backing up what we're talking about.
I love that. Yeah, we'll definitely have to add some show notes about the Rainbow Bridge and some of these experiences that we've had. And it's so amazing that that we do have this amazing connection with animals, and it's really telepathic. It's your first real telepathic relationship you have in this life that you have to strictly communicate on with no words, really. And eventually, or with our babies, and they'll eventually learn our language, but with our furry babies, it's all telepathic. It's all communication with reading their energy and their body language. So it's really nice when you use extra sensories to tap in as well. I know we've had some experiences where we've been able to communicate with animals in a way and that's helped us or saved us in a way. I know, Jason, you had a scary experience once on a horse.
Yeah. I was telling you about that earlier, and I really didn't think about it until we just talked about it, 'cause you asked me if I ever spoke to horses.
Yeah.
But no, I did get on a horse when I was a little kid. I was like maybe 12 years old actually at the time. And I remember I got on this horse and I hadn't had much experience horseback riding. And the horse went on 2 feet and like, yeah, yeah. And without me realizing, I kept saying, I thought at the time I was saying a prayer, but I think I was communicating with the horse. I said, please calm down. Please calm down. Please go back down. Calm down. Calm down. And then he slowly put his hooves down, calmed himself
Right.
down. And then they grabbed me, took me off the horse and put me on a more docile one. But, but yeah, that was
And
like one example.
you felt that communication, that instant communication. I know I've had some pretty wild experiences with animals when I'm hiking, where I've seen some predatory animals when I'm hiking, and I've had these moments of, oh my God, this eye contact is intense. But then
You've
I kind of,
saved people that way, if I recall correctly.
yeah, I have. Yeah. And I've seen bears and mountain lions on my hikes, and thankfully been able to get out of that alive. And I also felt like the animals can be drawn to people too. I know that I was actually meditating on a sequoia tree when I drew in a mountain lion, and it was just really curious about the energy and what I was doing. But it definitely scared the death out of me. But then we've also had these experiences with animals where we've been able to tune into them and help heal them. I know I had a really cool experience with one of my good friend's dogs. He was a really old dog. He was in his late teens and he was having a lot of eye issues. And they were having to give their dog at least 3 drops a day, and the dog was hating it. And I knew there was like cataracts, there was some type of film and some type of growth or something going on with her dog's eyes. And I am no vet, so I don't know what was going on. I just knew that it was that he was supposed to be losing his eyes, and it was a matter of time. So my friend was open to me doing Reiki, and I was able to do Reiki on this little pup's eyes. And I did it every day for a few days. And then she took him to the vet, and his eyes had gotten better. And the doctor was like,
Wow.
whoa, this is insane. And the doctor, right, the vet was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is such a turnaround. Like, what have you been doing differently? And she said, nothing. My friend's been doing Reiki on his eyes. And the doctor was like, oh, okay. Because the doctor was actually from Egypt and was familiar actually with Reiki and those practices. So that was interesting. And I think that maybe people should be incorporating energy healing into the medical field more. I feel like people
Shit
should.
for animals. Absolutely. And animals
Definitely.
and humans. Absolutely.
Mhm. I know that in Brazil, there's like a whole pranic wing. We learned that together when we did
Yeah, we
pranic
did.
healing.
Our
There's a
first year
whole
as friends. Yeah.
Right. There's a
Love it.
whole wing in some of the hospitals in Brazil that do energy healing, and they have pranic healing wings. And I know that it is getting more widely used and accepted into the medical community too. But I've also, to touch back on our pets who've crossed over, they can also come through in dreams, guys. If you are grieving, if you are going through the loss of a pet when you're listening to this podcast, or if that's why you happen to stumble across it, just know that you will heal. Everything, you will feel better. You will create a new bond with your pet, with your loved one, basically from the other side. It's just a different type of communication and a different type of relationship, and you will be reunited again. I do truly believe that I will be reunited with Cincy again and the pets that I have now and I will have. I 100% believe that because I have had confirmation after confirmation of people coming up to me and letting me know, hey, you have an orange cat with you, or this is going on. And it's just really incredible. And it opened me up to a whole new realm of the metaphysical and the spiritual community.
I'll say this to add, just from my own personal experiences, because you were talking about how our connection with animals after they cross over. I'll also say that you and I were talking about this before we started recording today, how I've had a couple of things with I have parrots, and I had a parrot for the first 20 years of my life. And Polly waited until I came home. I was visiting my friends in college. He waited till I came home from being out with my friends at 2 a.m. to die in my hands. He died in my hands, and I had him for 20 years, right? And the only other thing I want to add to that, there's a telepathic bond you could have with your animals while they're alive. Because Pepper, my African gray, as I always post, waited when I came home the night just ended a long-term relationship with an ex. And I was asleep on the couch, and Pepper figured out how to get out of the cage and fly to me and nestle with me while I was asleep to comfort me. And I woke up that next morning at 5 a.m., terrified I could have crushed her, but she was nestled on my shoulder. And I knew, she just knew. She knew that there was a change in my life I was experiencing, and she wanted to let me know that she's connected and all that. And so animals are there for that reason. And we have that deep connection with them as we develop our love connection with them and stuff, just like anyone else.
And they are so pure. They're such sweet souls that are so pure. And we're just lucky that for those of us who have pets, we're just lucky to get to love them. And I know that I've had surprise animals come through in readings too when I wasn't expecting it, just like Cincy came through for me through you after he died. I know once this is funny, I was giving a reading to someone. I was out on a balcony. We tried to leave their family get together to escape their energy so I could just focus on the person I was reading. Every time I was doing the reading, I was in this train of thought and I was in this trance giving a reading, and all of a sudden a dog would just show up in the middle of my reading. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. I know we're talking about finances here, but a dog just showed up and he's, nope. And I'm describing the dog. He's not saying anything. He's like, let's go back to the finances. So then a little bit later, I'm talking about what he wanted, his business reading. And then again, this dog shows up. Like, I'm really sorry, but this dog keeps showing up. And then he didn't want to give me anything, he said. But again, this dog showed up a third time, and then he just started laughing, and I have to interrupt you. And I'm like, what? And he goes, every time, I know the dog you're talking about. And every time my brother has walked out of the door behind you to go outside, that's when the dog is coming up, and it's behind you because it's my brother's dog that's coming through trying to interrupt my reading.
Wow.
Every time his brother walked out behind me to go outside.
Mediumship.
Right, smoking a cigarette or doing whatever. So I was having this random dog come through. So it was really funny. So he finally told me at the end of the reading, okay, this is what's happening with that dog, by the way, because he was really throwing me off because he was like, nope, telling me no about the dog the whole time. And it kept coming through. And I was like, I'm really sorry. I don't know. I got to tell you what I'm getting, even though you're telling me it's a no. I ended up afterwards going inside and reading for his brother, and the dog came through with a duck in his mouth. His brother and the fiance started crying because I guess was his favorite toy. He had a toy duck. So anyway, you could pick up on sometimes they're toys. Sometimes I know Jason, I've referred one of my friends to Jason when their dog died, and I was sitting next to them and they were holding the collar of this dog, and Jason's on speakerphone and I see you kept the collar, and he even said the color of it. So that's another
colorblind,
example.
so that should tell you something, right?
Right. Jason's colorblind. As we just wanted to go into this on another episode and tell you more examples, but we wanted to give you guys just something to think about, something to ponder on, to know that our animals, those spirits that are within those animals, those bonds that we create, they don't go away. They are waiting for us. We will see them again. And that's a love that's everlasting.
Talking about animals and doing it in a sense of spirituality is such a great thing to be able to do. Because I have had so many people I know, and I've experienced it myself. You've experienced it, the grief of a loss of a pet. And they are family members. And I think we can be open to say that. And from my vantage point, if we could reach one person today who might be a little depressed because they lost their animal recently and they feel alone about it, and then they stumble upon us and they listen to us talk about this and they get some hope about Rainbow Bridge and all these other things we've talked about, and then maybe their animal will come to them in a dream. You never know how these things work, but synchronicity is a very strong force of nature like gravity. So it could be us talking about this stuff, and then one of our listeners will connect with what we're describing. I just feel that's so important. And that's what I'm happy we got a chance to do this episode tonight on this topic. We have some supportive resources for people who are grieving, some websites and a reading list that we got from a really good article, The Origin of the Rainbow Bridge, which was by Tracy Allard, and it was published on August 26, 2022. Just for people to know, but we'll have that in the show notes and people can get.
So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for listening to Psychic Visions podcast. For your host, Megan.
And Jason.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow Psychic Visions podcast on Instagram. Psychic Visions podcast is a production of Electricast Media.
Our executive producers are Mark Netter and Peter Rafelson. If you like our show and enjoy what you hear, please subscribe and give us a rating wherever you enjoy podcasts. And always remember, harness your inner power.
Hey there, fabulous souls. I'm Stephanie Baklaan.
And I'm Eden Alpert.
And we're the hosts of the brand new podcast, Unapologetically Fab.
Get ready to join us on an amazing and real journey as we dive into life after 40 and own it.
We're all about changing the narrative, leaning into who you are, and living a life by your own design.
Join us as we embrace life unapologetically and redefine success.
This is Unapologetically Fab,
An Electric Cat production.
See you there.
Electricast.
For those of you who dream of a world where music and podcasts live together in perfect harmony, now, for the first time, Electricast gives you a magical compilation, Pod Till You Drop, Volume 1, where we give you the best in tunes and the best in podcasts. Feast your ears and hear the culture. Available now wherever you listen to music.
Electricast.